The wind howled through the ancient oaks, their gnarled branches like skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. Ravenswood Manor stood silent, its once majestic facade now a crumbling relic of a bygone era. The moon, tinged a sinister red, cast an eerie glow over the estate, illuminating the shadows that seemed to dance with a life of their own. I had inherited the manor from my grandmother, a woman I barely remembered, save for the cryptic stories my mother used to tell. Stories of curses and restless spirits that lurked in the dark corners of the sprawling house. As a professional horror writer, I thought I could handle anything. But standing before Ravenswood Manor, with its towering spires and oppressive atmosphere, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in over my head. The front door creaked open with a reluctant groan as I pushed my way inside. Dust motes floated in the air, disturbed by my presence. The grand foyer stretched out before me, its once opulent decor now faded and covered in a thick layer of dust. An imposing staircase wound its way up to the second floor, where the shadows seemed even darker and more foreboding. I made my way through the house, each step echoing in the silence. The air was heavy with the scent of mildew and something else, something metallic and faintly sweet. Blood, I realized with a shiver. The stories my mother had told came rushing back, tales of violent deaths and the curse that plagued our family for generations. In the parlor, I found a portrait of my grandmother. Her eyes, cold and piercing, seemed to follow me as I moved about the room. Beneath the portrait was an old, leather-bound book. The pages were yellowed with age, and the cover was embossed with strange symbols that sent a chill down my spine. I opened it, my fingers trembling. The book detailed the history of Ravenswood Manor, from its construction in the 1800s to the present day. It spoke of a curse, placed upon the house by a witch who had been wronged by my ancestors. The curse would bring misfortune and death to all who lived within its walls until the blood of the last descendant was spilled. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. My mother had always said the stories were just that, stories. But standing there, holding the book, I couldn't dismiss the feeling of dread that settled over me. I decided to stay the night, determined to prove to myself that the curse was nothing more than a myth. As night fell, the manor seemed to come alive. The wind outside picked up, rattling the windows and causing the old house to groan and creak. I settled into one of the upstairs bedrooms, its once lavish furnishings now draped in white sheets, ghostly in the moonlight. Sleep did not come easily. Every noise, every shadow, set my nerves on edge. The hours stretched on, the moon rising higher in the sky, its blood-red hue casting an ominous glow over everything. Just as I felt myself drifting off, a sound jolted me awake, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. I sat up, my heart pounding. The whisper came again, clearer this time. It seemed to be coming from the hallway. I gathered my courage and crept out of bed, the wooden floorboards cold beneath my feet. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from the moon outside. As I approached the source of the whispering, I saw a door slightly ajar. I pushed it open and found myself in what must have once been a nursery. The room was filled with old, broken toys and a crib that looked like it hadn't been used in decades. In the center of the room stood a figure, barely visible in the dim light. It was a woman, her long hair hanging in disheveled strands around her face. She was dressed in a tattered nightgown, and her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. She turned to face me, and I felt a wave of cold wash over me. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely more than a whisper. "I am Eleanor," she said, her voice echoing in the empty room. "The last victim of the curse." Eleanor told me her story, how she had come to Ravenswood Manor as a young bride, unaware of the curse that lay upon the house. She spoke of the horrors she had witnessed, the deaths of her loved ones, and the terror that had driven her to take her own life. She had been trapped in the manor ever since, unable to move on. "Why are you still here?" I asked, my fear giving way to pity. "I am bound to this place," she said. "As are you. The curse will not end until the blood of the last descendant is spilled." I backed away, my mind racing. There had to be a way to break the curse, to free myself and the spirits trapped within the manor. I spent the rest of the night poring over the old book, searching for any clue, any hint of a way out. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows, I found it. A ritual hidden in the final pages of the book. It was dangerous, and it required a sacrifice, but it was my only hope. I gathered the necessary items and made my way to the basement, where the heart of the curse was said to lie. The basement was dark and damp, the air thick with the smell of decay. I found the spot described in the book, a circle of stones set into the floor. I placed the items in the center and began the ritual, chanting the ancient words that would summon the witch who had placed the curse. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to deepen. A figure materialized before me, a woman cloaked in darkness. Her eyes burned with hatred. "You dare to summon me," she hissed. "I want to break the curse," I said, my voice steady despite my fear. The witch laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "The curse can only be broken by blood," she said. "Your blood." Before I could react, she lunged at me, her fingers like claws. I fought back, the struggle fierce and desperate. In the end, I managed to drive a silver dagger into her heart, just as the book had instructed. She screamed, a sound that echoed through the manor, and then she was gone, her form dissipating into the shadows. I collapsed, exhausted and bleeding from several wounds. The air seemed to lighten, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. I knew the curse had been broken. I had survived, but at what cost? As I made my way back upstairs, the first rays of sunlight breaking through the windows, I felt a sense of peace for the first time since arriving at Ravenswood Manor. The spirits were gone, freed from their torment. I had done it, but as I reached the front door, I heard a soft whisper, barely audible over the sound of the wind. "It's not over," it said. I turned, but there was no one there. I stepped outside, the fresh morning air a welcome relief. But the whisper lingered in my mind, a reminder that some curses never truly die. As I drove away from Ravenswood Manor, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were still watching, waiting for their chance to rise again.